Off for a prayer.
Beautiful. Thank you for the clearing, having me. So at this time, we invite the presence of the Creator to be here with us, the power of the Most High to be all around us, to flow through us into the lives of others. May this podcast episode, may these words touch the minds and hearts and lives of others. May these series have a deep impact on those who watch it in a benevolent, loving way. We ask that the power of truth and honesty, courage, bravery, respect, humility, and wisdom be here now, and that this medicine of humility guides us today, that the power of surrender guides us today, that the power of the fatherly energy watches over, blesses, and guides us, and supports us in our path of purpose and sovereignty and empowerment in good and loving ways.
So, thank you. Wow, so interesting. I just have to say, tell me a little bit about the fatherly energy that you just mentioned there. That's very
Uh,
synchronistic to have you say that on this prayer today.
well, as we've been talking, there's these 7 teachings that we've been moving through, and the 7 teachings correlate to the 7 directions of what's called the medicine wheel, which is really the orientation of life, and we're orienting always to this medicine wheel. And so in the east is truth, the first teaching. The second teaching, honesty, is in the south. The west is courage. The north is bravery. Below, which when we look, if we think of the medicine wheel and we're standing in the center of it, below is the Mother Earth, which is respect. And above is what's called Father Sky, or the heavenly
Yes.
realms, and
Mhm.
that's humility. So
Amazing.
the teaching of humility correlates with that energy of the Father.
Yeah. Oh, hi, moderators. Erica, Terry Lee. Thanks so much for doing your beautiful jobs out there. The reason I'm really taken with that is because my latest YouTube reading for the Divine Masculines are I was blown away with the energy. There seems to be in the collective this theme of I started it with the Emperor in reverse, and this whole channeling came out about usurping the Father's throne,
Mm,
meaning I had to go into it, superseding the example that the Earth Fathers have given. And so for the Divine Masculines to really step past the shortcomings, step into forgiveness, step through the limitations, and into their divinely embodied lives. And that's happened just in the last couple of days as that
mm.
energy. And it was so beautiful because it was like an internal permission for the collective divine masculine to not have a false sense of honor by holding back, waiting for their fathers to go through the growth or the rite of passage for them themselves to step into their higher timelines. And so I saw that as a grand theme. And I love that it's connected with humility and that we're right on point with this. It's just, yeah, making my day to hear that. So good. But
Yeah,
why
that's
don't
awesome.
you take it from here and give us a little bit of the teaching on humility?
Yeah, I would love to dive into humility and just to touch on what you were saying, what's interesting before going into the formal teaching, you could say, but to touch on that energy of the emperor, the king, what's interesting is synchronistically, just last night, I had a call with a group of men, and we were focused on the energy of the king as an archetypal
Mm,
energy. And I've been working with my friend Kirby, and we've been doing an in-person series with a small group of men. It's been kind of like a first time in this sense of using this format of these 4 archetypes:
mm,
the warrior, magician, lover, and king.
uh,
And these are the 4 primary archetypes of men as taught in certain men's groups and
mm,
societies. And, women also share in similar archetypes. That said, the king is the final, and that's what we've been doing this whole month. And just yesterday, I was in a call around the energy of the king
mm,
and how we all have this king within us. Every woman has a queen within themselves. And this royalty is actually a beautiful responsibility, and that a truly ordained king, let's say, is blessed by the Most High
Mm.
to serve the land and to serve the people. It's not this tyrant, greedy king that's taking. It's actually the true embodiment of the king energy is to be a humble servant. So to actually be
Yeah.
humility. Like imagine being actually a king or queen and your whole life is dedicated to serving the land and the people. It's a very humble path.
Very Taoist. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like um, stepping beyond that pretense. It's a lot of pride when we hold ourselves back or play small and we don't live our best lives for fear of, all of those limitations and things. Another
Mm,
theme that came out in that particular message was about the masculines looking for mentors and looking for examples beyond just their own father and therefore connection to source and really channeling that. But I have been recommending your men's groups because
no,
there are a lot of themes going on for many masculines in my orbit that they are kind of getting to the cap of the ego. And so I've been directing them towards your work that way as a
mm,
safe landing spot. Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yeah, so I feel like, all of us doing this conscious exploration and seeking where we are stepping into that nobility and really taking it upon ourselves to be the change we wish to see in the world. And that means of earthly good. That means
Mm,
practical. That means front lines. That means getting down and dirty with what needs to be done with our whole
mm,
hearts in it. That seems to
mm,
be what humility is for me. It's like having the right attitude, doing it for the right reasons, and just doing it
mhm.
and
Yeah.
not having all of that junk in there, the
Mm,
excuses or the limitations and just knowing what the right thing to do is. And then it is allowing it to come through us, I feel,
mm,
surrendering to it.
mhm. Yeah.
Mm,
That's, a really beautiful interpretation and really aligns with my understanding of it as well.
mm,
And so it's really cool to hear your experience just in tuning in to your intuition around it because these teachings are universal. They can be found through our connection with God, with nature, with truth, with our own soul. And humility is this beautiful teaching that is sometimes we think of being humbled, right? And it's
mm.
like, okay, if you woke up in the morning and God told you you're gonna be humbled today, it wouldn't be like, "Oh, yes, today's like, I can't wait." It would be like, "Okay, this is gonna be an interesting day." So there's kind
Smiting
of
might happen.
yeah, like, I might yeah, exactly, might get struck by lightning or, like, a cougar might jump on me or something, and, like, in that it's like there's a bit of apprehension. Sometimes people maybe resist it or view it as a negative thing. But in reality, the only part of us that can be humbled is the part of us that's operating separate from the creator, the part
Mm,
of us that's working for our own egoic ends and is
yeah.
self-centered or seeking validation or whatever the construct is that has strayed from truth because if you're truly in truth, why would you be like you're not going to get humbled. You're walking the path you're meant to
Mhm.
walk. So we only get humbled in that way of being knocked down when when we're actually like moving away from truth. Is then the creator humbles us not to punish us, but to bring us back into alignment. So it feels painful. Like I had a friend recently, and not to share his story, but he's had like a series of experiences that have been very humbling, like crazy things happening in his life. Yeah, right. Who can relate? And time again, it was like over the last few months, and I'm like, man, the creator's trying to talk to you. Like, you're being humbled not because you've done anything wrong, but because God wants to get your attention. And in some way, you're not listening and you're losing your way. And He's trying to bring you into alignment, back to the center, back to
Mm,
path. And sometimes we need those harsh humblings where we're getting like think of a lamb or a sheep who's straying from the flock, and the shepherd has that little hook thing and hooks the neck. It's like to the sheep that's painful and doesn't feel good, and it's like it's getting tugged by the neck by this hook, like this big cane thing. But it's like really, it's saving that sheep's life because if it strays, it'll be eaten by a wolf or a cougar, a mountain lion or something. So, it's painful in the moment, but it's what's best for the sheep. Similar in our life, sometimes we stray from
Sorry.
the truth and we have to do you like that image or is there something funny about it?
No, it's just I keep seeing the sheep. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm such a goofball.
No,
I
I
have
love
to
it. I
have
wanna hear
to
what you I
laugh
wanna hear what's
sometimes.
happening in your mind.
I'm just seeing, like, a lot of dancing sheep on a stage getting yanked off of
Oh, yeah.
anyways, like, my brain sometimes, I'm intrusive.
I
I'm,
love it.
like, trying
It's
to
like, we
soften the
don't
trauma of hurting the sheep, and then I in all fairness, I also was like, "But then that hook will make blood, and then the wolf will smell the blood, Robbie," you know? I got so distracted right there, It's like, I'm just keeping it
It's
real.
good. It's like the little girl in you that is daydreaming and, like, is in class and just dreaming about a whole movie in your mind.
Well, it's the little girl in me, I think I deflected the gore, the pain. I wanted
Yeah,
to diffuse the pain.
right?
I'm
Well, no,
like, "I
it's like
love your
it's not actually that
analogies."
gory though. It's like, the
No, it's
classic
not.
shepherd that has that, like,
No,
wooden stick?
totally.
Yeah, it's not like a hook, like, he's not, like,
Totally.
gouging the sheep or something.
No, I like dude stories, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm a fan of dude stories. They're
right,
just so different than the ones I always channel, so
right.
it's
Yeah.
affectionate giggling.
Good, yes. I mean, it's great. I love listening into someone's imagination and inner workings
Yeah,
because we all have our authentic what happens behind the scenes is very authentic, so
you're right. I don't know if it has any meaning other than it's just a mishmash of the collective.
right?
Anyways, as you were.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's really joy, like
Yeah,
sometimes we talk about these things that can get kind of serious, but like spirit and our soul wants to laugh and have fun. So that's really like beyond all of this serious stuff. It's like we're really here to experience the joy of and pleasure of being alive and
heck
creating
yeah,
and so that's why we that's why we do this work and humility is a big part of that
right?
true humility is not being all serious and
Very
tight
nice.
tight-assed. It's like humility is allowing the full joy and presence and
Yeah.
power of our own soul to shine out of us,
And making space for all of that, somebody could have felt interrupted by that little interlude, and
Mhm.
yet look at that.
Right?
Humility and just flow, and yes, that is how it should be for sure.
Yeah, not taking ourselves too
Yeah.
seriously, best of our ability. I know in my life, for many years, I took myself very seriously, and in that, I would always be really hard on myself.
Mm,
And it would be like I'd be my own worst enemy and my own
right.
worst critic, and it was, like, born out of low self-esteem and putting
Mm,
myself below, right? Always
yeah.
knocking myself down, and it was like, God didn't want that for me. God doesn't like seeing us beat ourselves up. He was like, "I don't need to humble you. You do it yourself all the time," you
Yeah.
know? And then I realized how boring that is. It's just not a good human experience. And I realized, like, oh, this is born out of fear and falsehood. And I would much rather live joyfully. And I started cultivating more and more joy. And I started practicing laughing at myself too, just like being willing to make fun of myself or laugh at myself or like, make light of dark or negative things, and sometimes people don't like that, they get offended, but I like to surround myself with people that are like to do that, because there's always dark humor that can help us see the light in
Mm,
a and there's a time and place. I mean, you don't make fun of the darkness all the time, but
no.
sometimes we have to be in it. That said, yeah. So I found that in that humility there's a direct relationship with respect, where respect is a lot around self-esteem and self-worth and building a positive self-image. And humility is like living that, right? Because humility, and I remember I heard about this, or I read this quote in a Deepak Chopra book. Some of you might think he's a reptilian evil person, but I like some of his books.
Nobody has said
And
such thing.
and there's actually a really great book. It's called The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. And he outlines these seven spiritual laws for how to create success and abundance and wealth in your life. Really great book. I've learned a lot from it. You can read it in an afternoon. It's like that big. All that being said, he talks about in that book, true humility is knowing that you're above no one and also you're below no one, that we're equal. And that place is a place of really solid self-esteem. It's like, I don't need to put you above me, and I also don't need to put myself above you. I don't need to be in this whole
Mhm.
comparison. I can just appreciate
Exactly.
you for your strengths and value, and I can appreciate my own strength and value, and I can just live in my own self-worth, without comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, there's that component of humility that is a very satisfying place to be. It's like when we find that place, that humble place in our heart of satisfaction and love for ourselves, there's a lot of
Mhm.
peace in it. There's a lot of satisfaction.
Yes. Exactly. We're not really concerned about what's going on out there or approval seeking.
Hmm.
I think when we're in ego, we're in those false constructs. We've created a persona. We're playing the game of how to fit in, how to belong, how to be acceptable, all of that stuff. And when we're in humility, we are more like a child where we're
Hmm.
just in the flow, we're just vibing, we're just doing whatever we need to be doing, and we're not really in that critical
Hmm.
aspect. We can get into ego and have that um, low self-esteem, yeah, and we won't ever be in humility when we're finding fault and picking that apart. So yeah, it is really great. I think I've heard like in the Holy Bible it says be like a child
Hmm.
to enter heaven. And
Hmm.
so we come into happiness, we come into that um, heaven on earth when we're in humility and we're
Hmm.
just doing us in our center. Yes. Nature is
Hmm.
so good for that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like in that it's beautiful you bring that it's like to be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven and the humility of that and how it is this direction. We were talking at the beginning
Oh,
that humility is
yes.
the direction of the heavenly realms,
Nice.
the direction of above, the Father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found like in that it's like if we've built our self-esteem and self-worth based on others' perceptions of us or validation, then it's going to be coming from ego, even if it's good intentioned, right? It's not actually coming from the humility of our spirit.
Mhm.
And that can be a tricky thing because these programs are so subconscious, and it's so built into us. And it's okay to receive validation. It's not a bad thing to be validated or to feel good about it. It's just if that's our motive for being
Mhm.
virtuous, or to serve is to get something out of it, such as validation or approval or a sense of um, self-worth, then it's a tricky
Right.
match. Like we're always going to get some of that because it feels good to serve, it feels good to give, like it boosts us, it gives us confidence. However, there's a different flavor of it when it's authentic. And
Exactly.
mm,
And how do we know it's authentic? Honesty, truth, courage, bravery. And it's interesting when we're thinking of Father Sky or the Creator being represented upward, that high frequency and being in alignment with love and righteousness. When we seek that kind of approval, that's like the greatest exhilaration when we know that
mm,
we've cleared the fear and we're no holds barred for that high frequency way of perceiving things or
mhm,
moving in our actions with that alignment. That I believe is the original template, that all that approval seeking, people pleasing, all the giving away our power externally, that's the counterfeit for aligning with
Mm,
creator, source, father sky, whatever we want to call it.
mm,
That's the measure. And when
mhm,
we're in humility, we do what's right because it just
mm,
feels good. And
mhm,
we're not bringing in that contrast that
mm,
would make us second guess. I think
mm,
that's also the self-worth, because to in my thinking, eroded self-worth is really when we let ourselves down and we don't align with that internal pillar
mm,
of love,
mm.
righteousness.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really beautiful point of like flipping where we're seeking validation and approval to basically God rather than
Yes.
the human realm.
All the original templates, everything that falls short is a counterfeit for the
Mhm,
original things. And so when we're stuck in a misconception like that, we can always bring it back to what is the original love based template that this is
mm,
trying to fulfill.
mm, mhm,
It's all we get so distracted. It's a paradigm of the fallen dimension, I guess, the material
mm,
perspective, the negating spirit.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and getting so focused on the outer, the outer world
Exactly.
and the outer sources. And I feel like there's also just a design to it that we seek it outside of ourselves enough times to realize the limitations of it, and then eventually we start
Mm,
to look to the greater source, the true source.
right. I think that's the benevolent nature of reality, is it's
Mhm,
encoded. And I keep hearing you say that source creator or father, God or whatever wants us to be humbled. And I keep seeing this tapestry of existence and the forces that be, there's order to the chaos. And if we try to bring chaotic energy into the elegance, we're
mhm,
just course corrected. We can't actually deviate too far out of alignment, or we start having death energies come in. Literally, we get undesirable karmas. We get schooled,
mhm,
and we learn. We definitely learn, and it's not something we have to over rationalize.
mm,
It's
mhm,
built in on every layer. It's fascinating to me, the
mhm,
nature of reality, and really pondering all of it that way, that
mhm,
we can rationalize it, but we can also feel it, and there are colors to it, there's music to it, all these different parallels across reality. It
mm,
is absolutely humbling to
mm,
see that it's everywhere.
mhm,
Everywhere. I once had an experience after my Kundalini awakening where I was stuck in deja vu for 2 years,
mm,
and it was really intense. And as I was in that constant meditation, I finally realized it was surrender to the divine. Was like everything that I tried to do, it felt like I'd done it before, and I finally just surrendered into knowing that I was protected, I was seen, and my creator knew everything I was going to do before I did it. And it took 2 years to fully surrender into feeling safe by that and
mm,
not to feel like I was out of my element.
mm,
That kind of a embrace is very humbling. And
mm,
so I've learned this one very deeply, where everything across all dimensions wants to support our alignment. It's made of love. It's all
mm,
love. I see
right?
it as the fabric of love.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, surrender is something we've touched on a number of times in these talks, and it is so contrary to how our ego construct is built, especially at this stage of evolution for humans. Like our whole construct is based on generally control in the
Mhm.
modern or in like that older paradigm that we're moving out of. is so much around control, and like to surrender to this power is very terrifying.
Mhm.
However, it's so satisfying and fulfilling.
Mm.
It's like to sacrifice ourselves is to make a sacred offering of our own being. And surrender is that. Surrender is like
Mm.
surrendering that which we're attached to the Most High. And in
Huh.
return, we are filled with the loving energy of that. And for much of the spiritual path, it's actually really that again and again and again is looking at into ourselves, tracking our ego, and helping our ego learn like, hey, everything you want and more is found through surrender to God. Because the
Right.
ego is so programmed to be like, no, I need the money or I need that. And it's like we just have to keep training the ego and training the mind to remember like, hey, surrender to God, and
Mm.
everything we need is provided for. Like you don't have to worry anymore. You're basically like become a trust fund kid to God. Like
Yeah.
all your everything you need is provided. And it's like training the ego and teaching the ego and guiding the ego to surrender, surrender,
Mm.
surrender. And then eventually the ego grows closer and closer to God, and there's these progressive paths of initiation into
Mm.
unification and fusion with consciousness and God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Putting
and
down
then
the fear,
mhm,
surrendering the fear when things aren't going our way, when things, finances get tight or people don't like us or whatever.
mm,
And we can spiral, we can get locked in that ego trap and be in pride and be in, victim mentality. And if we put that down and open and stay open to the alignment with source, then we get the things that are always coming to us that are the solutions. So being in
mhm,
humility and not holding a grudge, not holding a lack of forgiveness, a chip on our shoulder, that keeps us in the perpetual field of abundance. It doesn't
mhm,
shut down. And so we can weather those dips a lot
mm,
faster and we don't get swayed by the highs. We
mm,
kind of stay more even keel. It really
mhm,
is about balance. And this too
right.
shall pass, everything, the humility, because we can get all up in ego when things are going really well too, arrogance and that sort of thing, or um, when they don't go so well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. It reminds me of a talk I listened to by a medicine man and elder, Martin Practel. He's written a number of books, and it was either in a book or a talk anyways, through him, he was sharing how there's times in life where the creator will knock you down to your knees. And that's because you've gotten a little too high and he wants to bring your ego down a notch. And the ego learns that through the pain of being knocked down. And then there's other times where the creator will see you at a low point and be like, this isn't how you're meant to live. And the creator will come and lift you up and bring you up higher and kind of dust you off and give you a fresh set of clothes. And that's like a way to describe those ups and downs, that sometimes in life the most loving act from God is to humble us
Mhm.
and to bring us through a hardship. Like for me recently, in the place I was living at prior to moving to this location, which was not that long ago, I moved here about 6 weeks ago or so. In my old space, I had done a lot of work there. I was renting, however, it was like a home. It was home for me, and the landlord was very amicable and very generous. And his invitation to do ceremony there, build community, and I built a geodesic dome there and was doing ceremony and community work. It was very beautiful, and I came to this point where I started to things started to fall apart in my life there, and my partner left, and she felt finished with the house and the relationship, and she said, I'm done here, and I'm being guided elsewhere. And it was at that time amicable, and she said, I feel the same for you. And it was kind of this like intuition moving through her that I wasn't ready to receive that. I thought, no, this place is great, I'm not leaving. So fast forward a month or so, and the authorities showed up, the bylaw and the the local authorities who are governing this place. And the neighbors had called in the dome and they'd said, you have to get ready, you have to permit your dome, you can't go in it, you can't use it. And it was this whole stressful drama. Like the bylaw officer and the civil engineer showed up, and they showed up in their little electric car, like this kind of wimpy car. And then this guy steps out of the car and he's wearing like a bulletproof vest and he's like all strapped and like ready to go. And, I'm sure they deal with some rough folk, but I'm like just some ceremony guy, like with a dome, like, chill out, man. But it's this intimidation thing too. And I just kept my cool with it and showed them around. So then that continued on, and there was a number of other things that started happening. And the creator was bringing me to my knees in those moments, and it was because he had a greater plan for me, and he was guiding me elsewhere. But at that time I couldn't see the path 10 steps ahead. I had to keep my faith, and it was like so stressful at the time. It was very stressful. But I kept going to what you said, like sacrifice my fear. Like, okay, it's easy to have faith when everything's going your way. It's easy to believe in God when, the money's flowing in or everything's all hunky dory. But in that moment, it's hard to have faith. So it was just come back to faith. I know God is good, God is love, and this is for me. This is happening for me, not to me. And again, I would sacrifice my fear. And as I would sacrifice my fear and just see it all as path, right? To be like, this is path. This is not a distraction. This is my path. And surrender, surrender, surrender. It really chilled the energy out. It really made everything, it calmed things. Like it didn't fix the problem necessarily. It's not like the bylaw disappeared, but it was all keeping things smooth. And I knew that it was God's will because it would happen at these funny moments. Like I did a vision quest there. Within a few days after the vision quest is when the bylaw officers got called. And then later, I I had a friend coming and he was from out of town and we were hosting a ceremony and we needed a place to do it. And originally we were going to do it at my friend's house, and then he had something happen. We couldn't do it there. Last minute, I say, okay, we're going to host it at my house. We're going to do it here. I didn't want to because of all the drama, but it's okay. We're going to host it here. And the day before the ceremony started, so we did it on Saturday. On Friday, the bylaw came back and said, your neighbor complained again and said there was people in the dome because there's not supposed to be anyone in it. And, this is your final warning. You have to not use the dome. So we ended up hosting the ceremony in the house, and it was, to me, that was like, okay, we're doing this ceremony, and the ceremony is part of ceremony is to clear the path and align us with truth and align us with that humility of God's will for our life. So for that to happen right before the ceremony, to me, is just another confirmation that this is no longer where I'm supposed to be, and this ceremony is going to bring me. It's going to redirect my path, and well, not redirect it, but it's going to guide me in the straight and narrow path that will bring me to my best outcome. So to see those as good things rather than bad things, or to see it as path rather than like something negative, for
Right.
me is what kept me buoyant through that experience. And it takes a lot of humility
Yeah.
because the ego wants to be like, screw the neighbor or like screw the bylaw or like, that rebel comes out,
Right.
and the rebel lacks humility.
Mm.
And the rebel doesn't have humility. The rebel is screw authority.
Yeah.
And there is an authority that we do not want to screw, and that's the divine authority. you know so many people have issues and hangups with authority and with their fathers as this representation of authority often, and with that masculine energy that can be authoritarian, which is different than authority. Authoritarian is about domination and authority is about
Right.
governing and supporting. So, when we have that issue with dad or with the masculine, then how are we going to relate to the divine authority?
Right.
People often subconsciously then reject God from their life and they don't listen to the Most High anymore, and they follow their own rebellious nature, and it
Mm.
tends to lead to chaos. So, a lot
Or
of
in the
spiritual.
feminine's downfall, because that feels like a very masculine pitfall. The feminine gives their power away too quickly, right?
Mhm.
In so many ways, too
Mhm.
submissive, doesn't
Mhm.
question authority. It was just reminding me, I was watching,
Mhm.
scrolling, doom scrolling, and I saw a man, I wish I remembered his name. He was talking about raising daughters and the difference between authority and perceived authority, and starting really young, talking with his daughters, even 4 years old, going to a doctor saying,
Mhm.
the doctor seems like they are the authority over you because
Mhm.
they're a specialist, but you pay the doctor to help you. This is a
Mhm.
perceived authority, and really starting to help his daughters understand the difference, especially with male energy in their
Mm.
lives, between authority and perceived authority, and sort of like
Mhm.
asking his daughters different examples of
Mhm.
authority versus perceived authority, because the feminine within all of us tend to give our power away by submitting too easily in some regards as well, and that is an imbalance. That's not humble either. That's a lack of worth. It's not a
Mm.
balancing. I think humility is a balanced place to be
Mm.
in, because ego is involved when we give our power away. It's a suppression of empowerment, it's ego, and too much in that
Mhm.
domineering thing is an ego.
Right. Yeah, it's like the giving your power away is putting yourself below this
Mhm.
human authority.
Yeah. There
Mhm.
was something I was remembering when you were talking about the following the divine. Oh, I wish I could get it back.
Mm.
It was something about how we give our power away to that external authority when we're approval seeking. It was
Mm.
again about the counterfeit of obedience, external obedience versus divine obedience, and
Mm.
how that is so different. Humility, another little thing, so I'm rambling on, but I am being brought back to that moment when I had the Kundalini awakening before the deja vu. I remember feeling like my whole ego was going to be annihilated if
Mm.
I surrendered to the divine and really opened up to following a path of service and aligning with the divine. And I will say that the more I leaned into my connection to source, the more my uniqueness was celebrated. And I came
Mm.
into genuine, appreciation. So there's also this aspect of humility where it's so ecstatic.
Mm.
There's so much gratitude. And
Mm.
it's just, I'm just touching on it. I could go into ecstatic tears because it's so sacred
Mhm.
to know that we're all so unique, and that
Mm.
we're all so worthy, and that we all have the profound capacity to connect to source and to vibrate on that frequency where we can recognize that alignment, right? um and that's the
Mhm.
that ineffable. I
Yeah.
cannot, we just get into that, and to me that's the ultimate humility,
Mm.
is the
Mhm.
ecstatic reverence.
Mhm. Yeah. It's I know exactly what you are talking about,
Yeah.
and it is beyond one's capacity to speak of, and, the way I relate to it is like we in humility, we get our ego is put aside. We put our ego aside, or our ego is out of the way, or our ego is no longer in the driver's seat. So then what is it that is? And it's that source of consciousness. It is God, it is love, and God is our true nature is consciousness, and consciousness is love and bliss and peace and just all the most wonderful qualities that every human actually desires. Like we're programmed to want that above all else. And that's like the great play of this world is that we go to all these lengths, like people go and, like I had a yeah, people go all over the world for experiences. They might fly all the way to Bali to go have a spiritual experience, or to party, or whatever it is, to feel a moment of bliss, or you do all this stuff to have a moment of bliss, and then that fades because an experience is limited, and then you go through a whole other big experience, but it's always there within us, and the experience is beautiful too. That's part of life. However, wouldn't it be so much better to find that bliss first and then travel to Bali in bliss and go do the thing in Bali in bliss and have a new bliss that's unique because you're in Bali and it's great, and then you come home in bliss, and it's like that's
Mhm.
really what's here for us, and it's like that's a real high level mastery to be able to maintain that connection, and that's really the deeper spiritual work,
I'm
is
just too much in bliss, I haven't made it to Bali yet.
right? Well, that's the beautiful thing about it is like you
Mhm.
find it and suddenly
Yeah,
90% of your desires start to kind of dissipate. And then what's left is like the really authentic soul desires. Like,
yeah.
oh, the only reason I wanted to go to Bali is because everyone else was doing it.
Mm,
And it's like, actually, my soul wants me to go here to like Italy or,
mm,
Spain or somewhere that's like maybe not on the map as much. But it's like that's what my soul wants. And then you go to that and you have a really epic time because your soul brought you there, not just some conditioned thing.
yeah.
So then the remaining desires are just what your soul wants. It's beautiful.
Mm.
So humility is also not about like not having desires or like not having wants. Like humility is listening to like what is it your soul wants above all else? What are your deepest soul desires? And like go have those. Go make those for yourself. So for
Right.
some people, that might be like luxury. It might be living an extravagant life, being wealthy, being famous. Like that might be what their soul and what consciousness and God through them authentically wants to experience. And we
Mhm.
look at them saying, man, they're so arrogant or like they're so selfish. They just have so much money. It's like, no, they're actually following their hearts and soul's desire.
Mm.
Whereas someone else's soul desire might be to live in a tent or a teepee or a yurt or, something like that. I've done that before, and it gets old pretty quick.
Yeah. I've lived a varied life. I did 9 months without money once, and ironically, I was living in a $10 million mansion at that time, and for 9 months, I didn't use one single financial interaction, and I
Mhm,
just traded or whatnot. It's so interesting how we think that money opens the doors, and
mhm,
this reality, we can navigate it in so many ways, but if we stay in humility and stay in that flow and stay true to that authentic core, there's so many ways
mm.
to experience.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's such a good reminder too that, like, God is so much more creative than us, like, it's like we think, "Oh, I want to experience luxury, therefore I need to, like, work all the time and make all this money," and, we have these stories about what that means, but it's like, what if you don't? You actually just have to let go of all money, and then suddenly you're in a $10 million mansion, and you get
Yeah.
that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I think it's different every time. And there's so much to be said with really tuning in to what we want. When you were talking about the reasons we do things, I remember a conversation I had with God, and I was kind of feeling like, oh, I want to be, with my special person. I'm not able to be in that scenario right now. And I was kind of complaining to God, pouting about it. And I said, why isn't that available to me right now, today, God? And God was like, okay, we'll get to that in a minute. But what are you going to do this evening? And I said, I'm going to go to the beach and let my dog run on the beach. And God said, who's going to be there with you? And I was like, nobody. I don't want to see anyone. And God was like, that's why you're not with your special person tonight.
Mm,
Because you want to just, and I was like, oh, right. Like that is what I want to be doing. Sometimes
mm,
we have a disconnected idea of what we think we want to be doing, but when we really touch in with self and we humble, it's something else. There's all these expectations and attachments and things we tell ourselves, and sometimes it's more simple than that. I think
Mm,
there's a lot to be said for being humble about our circumstances at any given time, because all the choices we've made up until this present moment have landed us up in exactly the position in life that we are in right
mhm,
now. And we alone are accountable for those choices, especially as adults. I mean,
mm,
but that's a fascinating meditation to
mm,
really sit in humility and say, how is it that I have arrived here
mm,
in my
mm,
life?
mm, mhm.
And yeah, that's another really deep one to, to really sit with. I think we're touching on wisdom coming in next.
Yeah. Well, there's also a deeper truth in what you're saying about humility, which is that deeper place of responsibility for our life, and
Yeah.
like it's this balance of like surrendering to God and like allowing God to move through us, and then also realizing that we are also creators, that
Yes.
God made us in his image, that God made us as creators. We're not necessarily the creator, we're a piece of the creator, and that we do create our life.
Yes.
And part of that creative process is to have those conversations with our creator, to have those conversations with God, to
Um,
to be in rapport.
I just saw a comment. Somebody is definitely wanting to participate in Robbie's group if possible. Where and when is it? There are links in the description box of this Mason, Shava Mason.
Mhm.
Um, you can reach out to Robbie through the socials links on the description box of this video or our other podcast videos. Those links are found in all of those. Yeah,
Yeah,
right
yeah, it'd be
on.
great to hear from you. And I have a couple groups. I have an ongoing men's group that I do, and then I also have actually an upcoming 7 teachings group where we go through these teachings in a really deep, profound, experiential way.
And that's
Because
a
really,
co-ed group?
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
co.
Okay, right on.
Because really, like, the reason that you can talk about humility in the way that you can is because of these experiences. Like, you're referencing
Thank
that
you.
Kundalini awakening and, like, you know, moving from that place, it's like you're drawing from the experience of it. Because it's these things we can mentally speak of them, but the true power is in experiencing it.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
really,
humility in that sense is really tuning out the world and seeking within and making time to touch in with our core, our connection to source. And that can be one of the biggest acts of humility is just regularly setting time as a way of life. It becomes a discipline. I call it praying without ceasing because once you really learn how vital that connection with source is, the more you want to visit it. But it
mm,
takes some discipline to step out of the busyness and to tune into that until it becomes a way of life.
mm,
And when we're just beginning that, we'd be distracted by who knows what, and we don't tend to go there first. And I think a lot of people think it's a difficult thing to do, but it's hardwired into every single one of us and we
mm,
just have to begin. Is
right?
it Winnie the Pooh? Where do I begin? At the beginning, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's speaking on what my elder has taught me, which is the purpose of being a human being, is to walk and talk with the creator every second of our day. And so if you were truly talking all the time, every second, you'd be a rambling mad man or woman. And, but it's like the talking is not necessarily verbal.
Yeah,
It's like you're saying, like, taking that time to cultivate a relationship with God and with Creator within yourself and all around you, because it's everywhere. It's like it's both outside of you and inside of you. It's above you, it's below you, it's in every single human. God is in all of nature, all of creation. And sometimes it's easier to see it outside of ourselves before we see it inside. So there's just this beautiful presence that we can feel in nature. Nature is just so close to God because there's no ego constructs in nature, be it except what we project onto it. And it's just pure. And then when you see it in another human, depending on the human, some humans it's very hard to see God in them, but it's still there somewhere. But then God gives us these examples like Jesus or
Mm.
other saints and masters who have come forth to be a shining example of like God within a human being, and that they come to remind us of the Christ within, of God within, of the consciousness that lives within each of us. So sometimes as humans, we can't recognize it in ourselves. So first we need to see it through another outside of ourselves. But eventually you'll turn your gaze inward. And that's where God really is, for me at least, where the most consistent
Mm.
connection is within.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, we're at 51 minutes, I see here. I'm not
Mhm.
sure about timing today. Should we try doing a question this time?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that.
I love
Let's
that. Does anybody have anything? I saw a shout out to the subway. I love that. Cheers. Cheers to that subway, wherever whoever that comment was. Somebody said they were listening from
Oh,
a
yeah, so
subway.
I think
Ooh,
at
Tempe, Arizona. I've lived in Chandler and Scottsdale. What up, Tempe? That was a what up to you, Robbie, from Tempe, Arizona.
oh, sweet. Hello,
Yeah.
Tempe.
Yeah,
I've
is
never been
anybody oh,
I've been to Arizona, but never to Tempe. I was in Sedona actually.
nice. Uh,
I got my cat here too.
oh, meow. What's your cat's name?
His name is Rumi,
Oh, Roomy.
like the poet.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. Love him.
meow.
Yeah. So, yeah, any questions?
Or any mentions of anything you wanna celebrate in humility? Any
Mhm.
sharing? Any. I'm looking back to see what people are saying. Mm. La la la.
Yeah. Well, humility, as we can see, it's such a beautiful teaching because it really is about empowerment. It's like it's really
Mm.
about feeling the power of our soul move through us.
Mm.
And it's through surrender that the real power has the capacity to move through us.
Right, acknowledging it. Right, yeah. Yeah, because 'cause we're in denial otherwise, right? When we're in ego, we're in denial of our greatness and the greatness of those around us.
Hmm.
It may look like we're all that or think we're all that, but we're really denying the greatness.
Mm.
I agree. Well, I feel like this is the perfect place
Yeah,
to let
organic,
yeah.
organic living. Yeah. Well, thanks for another opportunity to connect and share. Really beautiful to hear your reflections on humility as well.
Yeah, likewise.
Hmm.
All right, until we meet again next week, much love, everybody.
Much
Bye for
love.
now. Meow.